Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Joe, and it's June 28th, 2020, and this is Gear Nerd, where I choose a significant piece of gear from my collection of drums and cymbals and present them to you and tell you some hilarious stories about them and, why they're significant. Been a professional drummer since 1993, and over the years I've had some opportunities to get some pretty cool things, and also I got the collector's bug and I started investing in a bunch of different cymbals and snares. When you're a drummer and you are in recording in studios or playing live, it's good to have a lot of choices, and sometimes you can get lost in the rabbit hole. You can just fall right in that sucker, and you can, if you've got some money and you're on eBay and you're looking for good deals and things like that. And over the years, I've had some opportunities to get some pretty cool things, and I want to share a little bit of that with you. Today, we're going to talk about a drum that I've had since 2007, and it is a 6.5 by 14 inch DW Collector's Exotic Ivory Ebony drum. This was made for me in 2007, and this color is still pretty damn popular. I just noticed on Sweetwater a couple days ago on their website that they're selling a kit with this exact color. This color has been very popular for DW, it seems, and it's been doing pretty well for them. So I got this drum. Well, I got this particular drum set actually when it was fairly new, and yeah, it was great that I was playing with Zappa Play Zappa at the time, and it was great that John Good was supporting us and being behind the project. And this drum is a VLT drum. Now, VLT stands for vertical low timbre. And VLT is it's hard for me to get into the full science of it, but what I know about it is that the drum, the wood, the outer plies, and I'm not sure about the inner plies, but definitely the outer plies are vertical. There's like literally pieces of wood that are vertical like this, that are kind of pasted together and go around in a circle, instead of what would normally be the other way, where the wood would go in this pattern in this direction and go around. So what that really does is the VLT allows for a lower fundamental in the drum because of the way that the tension is happening in the wood, because when it's vertical and it's going down this way, it's not going around this way. If it was going around this direction, the tension of the drum, the tension of the wood going around in that direction, makes the pitch go up. But because it's VLT and the stuff is vertical, as it goes around, it is not going up. It's actually lower than normal. And so this was the first time that I had ever had an opportunity to play a drum with this kind of wood technology. And in 2007, I'm not exactly sure when DW started the VLT stuff, but it was pretty new. It was fairly new in 2007, I remember. So I got this entire kit made with a 23-inch kick, which is really cool and different because it's usually 22 and 24. So I was trying that out, and this is the snare drum that came with it. Now this snare drum has a kind of like it was black, but it's almost like a pewter on the hardware. And nowadays their hardware is different. They have a much better looking black. It's like a black nickel or a solid black, but this is kind of like one of their entry black hardware looks. And over time it kind of wears away, but that's okay. It gives the drum character. It has the gold badge from that time period. Nowadays it's a silver and black badge. So this gold badge tells you the time period of when the drum was made. And another funny thing about this drum is this strainer. This is the strainer from 2007. I never had it upgraded because nowadays they have a mag throw-off snare. which is completely different technology, and it's better. It's really great. But this is the original one that came with the drum. It's kind of goes around from side to side, and I have a funny story about this, and I'll get into that in a second. But I want to tell you more about the details of the drum. Inside the drum, you know, they always stamp the drums with the fundamental tone. This one in particular is E flat, and it was constructed on October 5th, 2007. So that's when it was actually made. And I went out on the road with this drum and that kit with Zappa Plays Zappa in 2007, and then in 2008 as well. And this snare drum was my #1 snare drum for a really long time. I fell in love with this snare, and the reason being is because one of the things that DW did a lot with their drums is they would have inside, they would have reinforcement rings, which would mean that there would be an additional ring at the top and at the bottom of the shell, inside the shell, which would go around, and it would kind of like secure tension for the shell at the top and the bottom of the shell. But that also affected the sound. What I noticed is that whenever those reinforcement rings are not inside the drum, like this one, which was the first snare drum that I ever got without those reinforcement rings inside, then I noticed that the tone of the drum was lower. So, and I noticed that on tom-toms too. Even just standard maple toms, it doesn't have to be exotic VLT, even standard maple, if you don't have the rings inside, it has a lower tone, kind of more of a throatier tone, and that's what I describe this drum as. It's got that lower fundamental thanks to the VLT technology, and then also because it doesn't have the reinforcement rings inside, it's got more of a darkness, definitely throatier, and it was such a pleasure to play because previous to this drum being in my life, all the wood snare drums that I had were maple. All the drums that I ever played was just standard maple, and I had metal snare drums. So yeah, so this drum kind of took over when I first got it. But a funny story about this drum, I was playing at the Gramercy Theater in New York City on Halloween 2008 with Zappa Plays Zappa. And during my drum solo, I was doing like a clever thing where you turn the snare strainer on and off, right? Like kind of like this. Things like that. And so I'm really getting into it. And I turn this off, and I'm using it like, and then when I go to turn it back on, it fell back down. And I was like, what? So I put it back up again, and it fell back down. It would not re-engage to the snare position in the middle of my drum solo. And I was like instantaneously, like I just completely blacked out. Like I'm in the middle of a performance, and it's the middle of a drum solo, and I'm having a massive malfunction with the strainer, which was just like, it's just like, what? Are you serious? So I tried it once again, and it didn't engage, and it went back down, and that was when I knew that obviously something was wrong with it. So the first thing that I did was stopped playing, put my sticks on the floor tom, and I reached underneath and unloosened the snare bed, and I grabbed the snare, and I literally threw it across the stage. I was so angry, I just took it and I threw it. And I thankfully had my other snare down on the floor and put that up and just started playing again. And well, the snare survived. It didn't get damaged from being thrown across the stage, but that was that was the way that I dealt with the situation at that point. And when I got back off the tour, I called up DW and I brought it back to them, and I said, what happened here? And there was a pin that got dislodged, and it was sticking out, which was stopping it from re-engaging in the up position. So this little pin was sticking out, and every time I would go back up, it would hit the pin, it would fall back down. Unbelievable. But obviously, they've improved their strainer strainer technology since then, and this is, you know, this is an old school one now. And it's not, and believe it or not, it's not even one of their first. It's this strainer right here was one of their maybe second or third types of strainers that they were doing. And it still works good, and you know, it has a good had good intentions, being able to swivel back and forth and all that stuff. But their mag throw off now is much better. But I'm going to leave this on here for nostalgic reasons, unless that pen decides to give me a problem again. Then I'll just have to force myself to upgrade it. But all in all, this snare drum is a really beautiful sounding snare drum. I love the look of it. I love the black hardware, or the pewter hardware, you know, if that's what it's being called now. Or actually, they don't even offer this now. Like I said, they don't offer this color anymore. It's completely different. It's nice to have the triple flan hoops the same color as the hardware. That's pretty cool. And so yeah, so I'm gonna play it now for you, and you get to hear what it sounds like. Sounds pretty good, right? I have a clear black dot on the top of this drum, and the ambassador side, snare side on the bottom with the true tone snare strainers. You know, I always go for like a medium tuning on every drum that I play. I don't like it too tight, and I don't like it too low, unless, you know, it's a ballad or a song that calls for it. But so normally my go-to sound is to have it kind of like a medium tuning, but just kind of riding the top, like riding the tight, not too tight, but not real loose either on the top head. And also, I like to keep the strainer fairly loose. I don't like to have it too tight, because if it's too tight, it will choke the drum. And the looser that you go, the more length of a snare sound you get when you hit it. It's just a longer tone. So you can adjust how long you want it to ring, you know? And so sometimes you can tighten it up and get that real quick sound, or you can loosen it up and get that long, bonky ring, which is this snare drum really has a lot of. It's beautiful. I love it. And so there you have it. A 2007 Collector's Series Exotic Ivory Ebony with a slight candy black fade on the finish. 6.5 by 14-inch snare drum. So I nerded out on this drum. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.